when you don't know if it's actually started yet. And you'll be like,
when's
are we live?
The chat?
I think we're live. It might not come up on the iPad actually. See if it does, because we are now live, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. We just hit 250,000 subscribers, and admittedly, this is a bit impromptu because I wasn't really keeping my eye on the subscriber count because I'm just too humble and don't care about those kinds of things. But I saw that we hit 250,000 today when I woke up, and I thought the least I can do is do some kind of live stream. It's been a while since I've spoken live and loaded a few videos recently, so it's a good opportunity to talk about some of the things that we've been talking about on the channel. It's not working. Okay. Look, we're joined by my friend Riley, who's going to be helping to ask the questions, because I've tried this before and I've tried to look at the question in the live chat myself, and it just hasn't worked. So submit your questions if you want to ask me anything into the live chat, and Riley will keep an eye on them, so you don't need to worry about catching my eye. But we're having some trouble with the iPad. Is it not working? You're right with that?
You
can do it on mine if you want, because I'm on the Wi-Fi. We're just going to get the stream up so that Riley can see your questions on the live chat. I should be able to see them too, but I won't be continually checking them. Okay, yeah, the live chat's on here.
Right, cool.
I think that looks like it's it.
All right, decent.
So we've got 62 people here, which is nice. Thank you all for joining us. So the idea is to just answer some of the questions that you guys have. So we had someone on Twitter a bit earlier as well. I put out a tweet asking people for questions, so we can do something of a Q&A. So one of the things that people ask me about a few times, I got a few questions about this. Let me find the actual tweet that I put up. So quite a few people asked me about my views on morality and whether or not they've changed, whether or not they could change, that kind of thing. I have to say, the stream is working, isn't it? Is the stream actually on? Because it doesn't seem to be on my computer.
See, on the iPad it says it's working, and then on your phone it still says waiting.
It says waiting on my computer too. Are people there? Like,
yeah, people are asking questions.
Are they in the live chat? Are they?
The live chat's popping. If the live chat is popping and the video is popping, comment.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we are actually live, because I can't seem to get the stream on my computer for whatever reason, which is really annoying. We hate to waste my time. Yeah, no, it's fine. Okay, we're good. Right. So a lot of people asked me, let's jump into this. A lot of people have asked me about my views on morality. I spoke yesterday for Dorset Humanists in Bournemouth, and I gave a talk entitled The Good Delusion, in which I spoke about why I think that traditional conceptions of morality are a delusion and why I think that they don't make any sense. But I've also been doing a lot of thinking about a move towards objectivity in ethics, and I've not changed my views. I still stand by everything that I've said previously about morality, but I would like to issue a kind of update, because some of the things that I used to think, I realized some inconsistencies in the way I was thinking. So when I was talking to Stephen, Rationality Rules, about this, I stand by the criticisms that I had of his views, but I now accept the criticisms he had of mine, which are essentially an inconsistency in the idea that if I'm saying subjectivity is at the basis of all morality, he was pointing out that subjectivity is really at the basis of epistemology as well, and things like that. And I've been doing a lot of thinking and realized that he was probably right on that point. But we met recently in Oxford privately, and we had a conversation in a cocktail bar, and we talked about morality for a while. Well, he kind of managed to drag me way over here. So we were like far apart. He dragged me way over to here, and then I think I kind of reeled him in a little bit there. And we now more or less agree. We've met in the middle. I don't want to say that with certainty, because he might have some contention still, but I moved way more towards his view, but there were some contentions that I had. His idea of axiomatic oughts, I still think is mistaken, in the sense that, firstly, I think there needs to be a slight redefinition of what it is, and secondly, I think there's only one axiomatic ought. But go and watch our exchange. But that talk I did in Bournemouth yesterday was filmed, and it should be on the channel, and that will serve as an update to my views of morality. Essentially, the short version of the way I'm thinking at the moment is that we can get a version of morality that can exist in a world without free will. And that's not just a system of ethics that works without free will existing, but a system of morality that necessitates free will not existing. And that sounds really strange. Traditionally speaking, if free will is the ability to choose between two different actions and the ability to have acted differently, then for there to be such thing as moral responsibility, because ought implies can, to be able to say you should have done this implies that you had to have actually had the option to do one or more things. So if free will doesn't exist, then morality seems to break down. But I like to make the point that if free will doesn't exist, and the reason it doesn't exist, if you watch my video on the matter, is because of the fact that you're governed by your desires and you don't choose your desires, then so your actions are determined by your desires. That's the free will argument. And the point that I make in this talk is that I've come to realize a kind of psychological hedonism, which is that really all you actually desire, ultimately speaking, the only thing that's desirable or desired in itself is pleasure. If you put those two things together, you get a situation where, since I can know for a fact, because you don't have free will, that you're acting in accordance with what you think will bring you pleasure, then you are either right or wrong about that. So it's very close to what Sam Harris is saying, except he tries to jump from saying because pleasure is desired, pleasure is therefore desirable. I don't cross that gap, but I recognize that if what you're doing, because there's no free will, necessitates that you think that whatever you're doing will maximize your pleasure, you're either right or wrong about that in such a way that can only be rectified if you changed your action. And this is practically indistinguishable from ethics. And I think it's a really interesting line of thought. But that's why I was so excited to give a talk on the matter. And hopefully when you guys see it, you can let me know what you think and see if you think I'm kind of on the right track there. Because a lot of people had a lot to say about my ethical views, and they're continually adapting and changing. But like I say, I stand by everything I said before, but I think things are a little more complicated than they were before. But I hope to have Stephen on the new podcast, which will give us an opportunity to really expound those views. In fact, if you don't know about the podcast, just as a quick segue and a plug, tomorrow is the day that the podcast finally goes live, the Cosmic Skeptic podcast, Monday, the 15th of April. The very first guest is Armin Navabi. We had a fantastic conversation, and you'll be able to get that on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Libsyn, pretty much everywhere except Google Play Music, because they have a problem with the UK, apparently. And episode 2 will also be immediately available, but only on the audio sources, so only on iTunes and Spotify, not on YouTube for like another week. But that should hopefully motivate some people to go to iTunes and give us a rating. So when it goes live, please go over to iTunes and give it a rating. The reason for that, if you give it a 5-star rating, then it looks good on iTunes algorithm, and they'll put it on their like pages, and they'll put it in the search indexes, and that will give us better statistics and allow me to reach out to better guests. We've already got some great guests lined up, but if you want even better guests, then the best way to do that is to give us a rating on iTunes. That would really help us out. But that goes live tomorrow, episode 1 with Armin Navabi, and episode 2 will be immediately available. And episode 2, quite happy to announce, I wasn't going to announce this until tomorrow, but we hit 250K, so let's do it. Michael Shermer, who I was incredibly excited to confirm on the podcast. We had a conversation about the nature of death and the afterlife and where that kind of psychologically comes from. And it was so much fun, and I really enjoyed it. The episode is called something like Death, How to Avoid It, and Why You Shouldn't Be Afraid. So if you want to hear that with Michael Shermer, a conversation that we had, then the podcast is going live tomorrow on iTunes and Spotify. Go and subscribe, give us a rating, and let me know what you think. And we've got some really, really good guests, believe me, lined up after that. So, having said that and having done that plug, Riley, how's it going on the question front?
Good. It's all good. So that was a big plug to start off. So, in terms of the questions coming in, I thought we'd start on Twitter. First come, first served. Stephen Jump asks, more book recommendations, please.
Okay, great. Because I remember I did a book recommendation video quite a while ago, and I said that I might do another one, and then I just didn't. Animal Liberation by Peter Singer. You'll all know that I well, hopefully, if you're subscribed and you watch my videos, then you'll know that I recently did a video about veganism, and the book that really made me begin thinking about animal rights seriously was Peter Singer's. And Peter Singer, as a philosopher, is just a wonderful human being to read. You can read his Practical Ethics. You can read The Life You Can Save. That's where like the puddle paradox comes from. I mean, he makes really interesting points. Like, for instance, if you were walking down the street, this is Peter Singer. If you were walking down the street and you saw a child drowning in a puddle, and you knew you could save that child with absolutely no stress to yourself, like it's just a puddle, but the child's drowning in it. But to do so, to save that child, you'd have to ruin your boots, and your boots cost you $50. Would you do it? It's like, you would probably be considered a moral monster if you didn't go and save that child because it would ruin your boots for $50. But Peter Singer points out, for that same $50, you could donate that to charity and save a life on the other side of the globe. And what's the moral difference there? That's an interesting point. That's the kind of things that he brings up. in The Life You Can Save, which is a good book to read. So anything by Peter Singer, but especially Animal Liberation, if you haven't thought about animal ethics seriously before, it's a really interesting and eye-opening book. Also, The Expanding Circle by Peter Singer is a book about how altruism can come about in an evolutionary setting. Evolution seems to suggest that because it's survival of the fittest, people who act in their own interest will survive better and prosper than people who are kind of making concessions for other people. But he, in his book, explains how it can be evolutionarily beneficial to have altruism, a bit like Richard Dawkins' The Selfish Gene, which is another, of course, book recommendation. I'm looking over to my right to see if I can see any books that I've read recently. I recently read The 10 Types of Human. I can't remember the author's name, Dexter, I can't remember, but The 10 Types of Human is an interesting book about, it's like a popular science book about the psychology of human beings. As well as that, let me see here. Guns, Germs, and Steel is a good one to read about kind of a history of the universe. Sapiens is like an obvious choice. Definitely go and read this. I think what I might do, because I don't want to forget any interesting books, I might do like an update on my website or on a Twitter feed or maybe even another video or something so that I don't forget too many books. But I'll definitely have that out soon. But at the moment, I would say Animal Liberation, if you haven't read it, is the one book that I recommend to most people. I have a Goodreads account. Goodreads.com/Cosmic Scat Pick tells you what I'm reading, what I've read, what I thought about it if I wanted to read a review. Riley, you read Animal Liberation, or some of Animal Liberation, didn't you?
Yeah, I read half of the first chapter, and just after that, I've been vegan for 7 days.
It's the kind of effect the book can have.
So that leads us on to the next question, which so many people are asking. Someone just shouted vegan.
Where?
Basically, have you gone vegan?
Well, okay. So as you'll know, again, if you saw the video on veganism that I did, it was essentially a challenge, which was, look, I'm becoming increasingly convinced that the vegan cause is a justifiable and moral one, and perhaps the only one. And I said in the video, look, if you can talk me out of this, then please do it. And people have tried, and I've been incredibly grateful for the response. Even if I didn't respond to you, if you left a comment, sent me an email, that kind of thing, the chances are that I did see it, especially in the email inbox. Although please don't send personal messages to my business email, because I want to be able to engage with your arguments, but I need to have an email box that's strictly for business purposes. But I've probably seen your correspondence, and I'm really grateful for everything that people have sent. But it hasn't took me out of it, I'm afraid. And in fact, I've also been reached out to by many vegans who are offering me recipes, and people saying, look, I can meet up with you and tell you how to get the right nutrition and how to do this properly. Some vegan channels on YouTube, like Ask Yourself, made a video reaching out to me saying, if you want to have a conversation, then you can do that. And I've been incredibly grateful for it. But I think philosophically, I'm still convinced that veganism is the only moral choice. So I'm going to be trialing it. I'm going to try to go vegan. As far as I understand, it is easy to do. As far as I understand, it's easy to get the nutrition that you need, and it's easy to get even the fulfillment that you get, although that's not really a moral consideration for me, but it should be fairly easy to do that. And so if I find by trying veganism that it is in fact easy to do, then I will be even more convinced that there's no moral excuse not for doing it, because of the fact that it's so easy and it causes so much suffering if you don't. So I'm going to give it a go. For the past few days, I've been eating vegan. We just had a lovely vegan pizza and macaroni cheese, and it's it's fine so far. I've been getting protein from nuts and vegetables. I've been getting B12 from fortified soy milk. It's working. It's fine. But I'm not going to commit to going vegan, partly for the reason that if I then don't manage it, it would be a real shame for people who are supporting any kind of vegan conversion to see me like deconvert, as it were. So I'm not going to make a big thing of it, especially because this channel isn't devoted to practical ethics. It's not devoted to activism or anything of that sort. It's devoted to philosophy. It's devoting to philosophizing. So even if I don't go vegan, if I'm convinced that the philosophical arguments of veganism are still sound, then I'd be a massive hypocrite. But the arguments would still be sound, and the channel would still serve a purpose in discussing those ideas. So to answer your question, I'm trialing going vegan. I'd like to go vegan, and I think as long as I can keep it up, it shouldn't be too difficult, but I don't want to commit to it. In fact, I think this jumper is made of wool, which is like, there are so many things that you just kind of don't think about when you jump into something like this. Like, yeah, there's the food, but there's also like, what shoes are you wearing? What are your clothes made out of? What about cosmetics? What about loads and loads of things like that. What about the bag that you wear every day? Like, I'm pretty sure I wear a leather bag every day, and I hadn't even really thought about it before. So there's a lot to do. So I don't know how much you have to adapt your life and how long you have to do it for before you can call yourself a vegan. I'm not sure, but I will probably let you know how it's going on Twitter and social media and everything like that. But yeah, we'll see on that front, but I'm not entirely sure yet.
Can I ask a question? Actually, I will try and extend the questions and extend the discussions as best and appropriately as I can. Are you aspiring, assuming that things like nutrition and convenience go well over the next few days, weeks, months, are you trying to work towards some kind of absolute veganism, some kind of, I suppose, code of principles which you'd fully associate or instantly associate with veganism, or are you trying to do it in your own kind of gradual, progressive, alternative way?
So my philosophy around this, and I don't think I made this clear enough in my video, I wish I'd have pressed this a little bit more, is that veganism, as I understand it, and the kind of ethical veganism that I'd want to espouse, is not something akin to don't eat animals, don't harm animals. I mean, that's not possible. For instance, in order to grow the plants that we need to eat a plant-based diet, in order to grow those plants, you need to destroy land, which destroys habitats and kills the beavers and things like that. Like, it's not possible not to kill animals. But the question is about whether or not it's necessary. In a situation where we need to kill animals in order to produce plants to eat, then yeah, we have to cause animal suffering in order to survive. The point for me is minimizing unnecessary harm to animals. So the totality of the veganism that I would want to aspire to would be something like that. So do I need to have a bag made of leather? No. So just don't do it. I don't need leather shoes, so I just won't buy them. I don't need to have a meat in my diet, so I just won't do it. Now, there might be instances where I need to cause harm to an animal for whatever purpose, in which case, if it's necessary, then that's another moral question. But generally speaking, it's like when you say, like, would you go like totally vegan? Like, yeah, to the extent that if I commit to the idea of minimizing unnecessary suffering, then I'm going to minimize unnecessary suffering wherever it comes from and however I can. But there's an interesting philosophical question, which is something like, and I've got a good guest on the podcast coming down the line, which I'll probably ask this to. Riley's smiling because he knows who it is, but we're not going to announce it yet. But we've got a really, really good guest for this. But I'm going to ask this individual, something along the lines of, if the goal is a minimization of suffering, which I think it is, I think that's the vegan case. What about a situation where, for instance, if it were unhealthy to live on a vegan diet, but it weren't severely unhealthy, it was like people would feel a bit more tired, they'd be more fatigued, or they have like a slight headache for 3 days of the week or something like that. So it does actually have detrimental health effects, but the detrimental health effects are nowhere near the level of suffering for animals. Like, can we still morally expect people to eat a plant-based diet if we know that it will actually have a negative effect on their health? But if the negative effect on their health isn't severe enough to fully outweigh the suffering and death of the animals, like, would that still be a moral obligation? Would it just become a moral virtue instead? But that's something which is interesting from a moral standpoint, from a kind of taking a step back and looking at it objectively, or as objectively as we can. The answer seems to be, well, an animal's suffering is there's no reason to think that it's worth less or more than the suffering of a human being. So if we would have to slightly diminish our health in order to stop the suffering of animals, then we have to do it. But as a human being, it's very difficult to actually make that sacrifice. So that's an interesting question. But the fact of the matter is, luckily, we're not in that situation. We don't, as it seems, need to actually diminish our health in that way. But I'd like to discuss the question of in a hypothetical situation where it did diminish our health, whether we'd have to do it. But that's something that will come up in that fateful podcast episode, which is probably the one I'm most excited for. So keep your eyes out and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes when it comes live tomorrow. But yeah, I'd say that's probably what I'd say on that front.
Cool. Let's just go through. People are taking a guess as to who the next guest, the secret guest is. But
I haven't actually checked the live stream myself. I'll have a little look.
I'm actually of course, this is the first time that I've done this, but I'm actually amazed at the level of engagement. It's actually crazy.
Thank you all for being here.
This would be
really
such a noisy room. It would be crazy.
Yeah, I can imagine like a Discord server or something where everyone gets the mics on at the same time.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, people ask me if I'm setting up a Discord server. I have no idea how Discord works. I really don't understand it. I'll try and learn about it, and maybe I'll set one up after that, but not in the short term. Somebody just asked how tall I am, because man, I get asked that all the time. Like people, when people meet me in person, like the first thing that they invariably say is, "You're taller than I thought you were." I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I like sit down in my videos. I don't know, but like people think that I'm shorter than I am. Like I post a photo with like Rationality Rules, or like that photo with Claude Littner on my Instagram or whatever, or with Douglas Murray, and then people see that I'm like way taller than them, and they're just like blown away. I'm like 6'1", something like that. Would you say, right? Like
I'd say, I don't want to put a number on it and get it wrong, because then everyone will just like put it in their Instagram bios and stuff. So I don't know. I would say you're around 6 foot.
Yeah. The last time I checked, it was 6 foot, but I think I might have grown slightly since then. So it's like 6 or 6'1", to answer your question there.
We've got what did you call it? A super comment?
Oh yeah, the super chat.
Super chat. So someone, Jack Howe, has said, "Your channel has changed my life. Thanks for everything."
Oh my goodness! Wow. Thanks. I highly doubt that that's truly the case, but I really appreciate that sentiment. Thanks for being here.
Jim Browning asks, "Who is the theist you'd most like to debate, and why?"
Well, interesting. I'd like to debate some like a high profile theist like William Lane Craig or something, because I think that would get a lot of attention. And William Lane Craig is a fantastic debater. As far as apologetics goes, he's one of the kind of knights in shining armor for the Christian apologetics movement. I'd love to sit down with him and debate him. Although I feel like someone like Craig takes advantage of the debate format and tries to kind of frame everything in a way that's beneficial to him. He removes the burden of proof that he holds, and it just doesn't work very well. Like if you watch his debate with Christopher Hitchens, he begins by saying like, the atheist has to prove that there's no good reason to believe in God. And it's like, that's not really the case. Now, Christopher Hitchens didn't do anything to counter that. And I feel like that's one of the debates that Christopher Hitchens lost, in terms of if you watch like the actual talent of the debate and who came out on top there, really, in terms of who would actually convince someone who had no knowledge on the subject. William Lane Craig won that debate. And I think the reason for that is because he just took advantage of this debate format. And Christopher Hitchens was more successful when he sort of was able to jump in whenever he wanted and have a back and forth. But Craig really takes advantage of that. So I'd love to debate Craig, but probably in a more conversational format, like on the podcast or something. Maybe I can reach out to him, but I doubt that he'd be willing to do it. But you never know with these kinds of things. But outside of that, it's difficult to say, because I just want to debate anybody who might actually be able to change my mind or the minds of my audience. So people who have original arguments for God, people who have an original way of putting them or a new way of putting them, anything of that sort. Like I won't give you names, because like, sure, I'd like to debate the big name theists because it would get a lot of views and a lot of engagement, but I could meet someone on the street, and if they've got a good argument, then that is just so useful to talk to them. So whoever's got a good argument, and in fact, if you ever have any recommendations for theists that you found that you want me to debate and sit down with, then let me know. I'm really busy, like in the months of like May and onwards, because I'll be at university, so I won't be able to do much of it. But like outside of that, like I'd love to do it. But equally, I'd love to debate someone like Ken Ham, just because I think it would be super fun. I just think it would be so easy. It'd be so easy that if I put that on my YouTube account, I don't think I'd be able to like post it on my Patreon account or something, because I feel like it was just too easy, just a bit of fun. But I'd love to do it just for the laughs and for the views. It could be quite a video would come of that. But yeah, I think the main one would be probably William Lane Craig.
Cool. So we've had quite a few questions from people so far, asking in general how university is going and how you are in general. So I guess they're asking just for a bit of an informal
how are you?
Life update. Yeah.
So we're currently on a vacation period from university. There are 3 terms in the year, and they're 8 weeks long each. So it's really, really short compared with the universities in the UK. I don't know what it's like in the US, but University's going great. It's very intense during the term time. Essentially, the way that Oxford works is, for a humanities subject like mine anyway, you get set a bunch of reading and you spend every day just reading. And then you take the reading that you've done, you put it into an essay. So you spend like a day or two writing. And then you sit down with a tutor who's like an expert in the field from your college or sometimes from a different college. And you just talk to them about the topic for an hour. And then you just repeat the process for the next topic the next week. And you do it every week. So every week you have like maybe an essay, 2 essays, 3 essays sometimes, as well as when I'm doing logic, formal logic, it's kind of like doing a maths sheet, because you'll have like equations you need to work out. It will give you a really long logical form argument, like if P then Q, that's the first premise, and then the second premise is if Q then R, does it follow that if P then R? And like, yes, it does, and you have to kind of mathematically prove why that's the case. So that's more like doing a maths sheet. But again, it's like you get set those questions, you do the sheets, you bring them to your tutor every week, and then you talk through. But it's very intense. And the reason it's intense is because of the amount of reading that you get set. So for any individual topic, you'll get set a bunch of texts, and you're reading the primary text. So if you're studying moral philosophy, you're reading Mill himself, as well as the commentaries on Mill. But as well as doing that, you're doing moral philosophy, but you've got logic to do as well. So you've got your problem sheet. And then because I do philosophy and theology, I also have a paper on religion. So I've got to be studying the religion of Islam for a week. Like I get a week to try and learn as much as I can about Islam to be able to talk to my tutor about it. And then over the vacation periods, you just have to go over that and spend more time delving into the topic so you're ready for the exam. So it's really intense because the content is very high level. But it's fun because the social life is amazing too. Like you meet some great people. There are wonderful people running around, and a lot of the time they're open to talking about the topics of their subjects. But I found that a lot of the time, like I expected going to Oxford, it'd be a bunch of people walking around in tweed jackets, going to the pub and talking about philosophy. That's not the case. In fact, if you find a philosophy student and you get them in the pub, like the last thing they want to talk about is philosophy, because they've been doing it all day. They've been reading and they've been doing their tutorial, and they just do not want to talk about philosophy. But like I speak to the physics students and the chemistry students and the history students. They all want to talk about philosophy. They all want to talk about free speech and politics, and people are informed. Like it's great to be able to speak to people who are studying history at Oxford about history and just learn a thing or two from them. Like it's really good fun. And the social life is good, but again, you don't have much time for it. Trying to keep up a YouTube channel at the same time is also almost impossible. But it's definitely been worth doing. I'm having a good time. But I've got exams coming up at the end of the term that I'm starting in like a week or two. So yeah, I should be studying for that right now, but it's not every day that you hit 250,000 subscribers. So I'd rather be here.
Following on from what you've said, which format of learning and intellectual development do you think is better? Or if you had to choose one, would it be the formal university education structured based on formal feedback, like a very top-down approach under particular time constraints? Or would it be as you have learned over the past 4 years or so through your own intuition and curiosity and just sort of following your nose?
Well, look, I've really enjoyed the university experience, but the only reason, I stand by this, the only reason that I was able to get to a university, especially one like Oxford, I think was because of like this YouTube channel and the philosophical engagements that I've made because of that. So I think that the only reason I was able to perform well in an interview and put together a good personal statement that was able to mention like the YouTube channel and some of the things I've been doing, the only reason I was able to get to that position was because of the independent learning that I've been trying to do up until then. Now, that's not the same for everybody. A lot of people get to Oxford because they've had good schooling or because they've done well at a bad school or whatever it is, or they study hard. For me, it was more of this kind of personal interest in philosophy. I have more fun when I'm reading a book of my own accord and I learn a lot from it. I have a lot more fun doing that, and I feel a lot more fulfilled doing that because I can choose the topics for myself. However, you can really do with a kick up the backside. Like the amount of reading that you're expected to do at university can be pretty heavy, and it's like you would not do that kind of reading on your own. Like you just wouldn't. As much as you can say, oh, I'm interested in this, and I try and like keep up with the reading, or I look at the reading list, like you just wouldn't. Like if you see the amount of reading that people have to do, like they're getting incredibly stressed out about it, spending their entire days in the library, like you just wouldn't be able to do it outside of a university environment. So I much prefer the system of learning, which is more independent and reading whatever you want to read. But you need to be told what to read, and you need to kick up the backside to actually get on with it and read it. And then when you're able to write an essay to hand in to a tutor who's an expert who can talk to you about what you've been reading, like it's invaluable. But of course, like you need both. I'd recommend to people to go to university. Depending on the university, some universities just aren't worth it. Jordan Peterson made a good point about this, actually, that I remember listening to him on, and he was like, look, university is not really like, it's not essential to getting smart. Like smart people get into university. University doesn't really make you smart. And he made this point, like, what do you like? Every university you go to will have a library, and every single library in any university will have more books than you could ever possibly read in your life. Like, what are you going to do? Just sit in? You're not going to read all of those books. If you spent every day of your life in any library, just reading and reading and reading and reading, you become one of the most knowledgeable people on the planet. And it doesn't matter if you're reading in the Library of Oxford or if you're reading in the library of your like kind of local council. Like, it's the same books, you know. Like the only reason it's good to get into somewhere like Oxford is because of the like historical stature that it gives you, and the social life is great, and it looks good on a CV or whatever. But in terms of the actual learning and the knowledge, if you're going to university for the sake of actual education and trying to learn a thing or two, you can do it absolutely anywhere. The only thing that university really gives you in that respect is the motivation, because it practically forces you to actually get on with it. But outside of that, like, go to a bloody library, pick up a book. That's all we're doing. Like I said, the system at Oxford is essentially just reading and reading and reading, and then writing an essay. You can go to your library and read and read and read, and then write an essay and put it on a blog and get people online commenting and critiquing you. Like, it's so easy. You just gotta do it. So go to university. It's fun and it's good motivation, but it's really not necessary, I think. Anyway, what do you think, Riley?
You've got to follow your own intuition before you do anything else. You've got to be curious about something to ever be at the point where you could follow a structured format of study. Yeah. There's no point. It's not like the universities pluck students out of thin air, or will approach one school and go, give me your best 30 students, and then they'll whisk them away in a minivan. It's nothing like that. Like, you apply, you try and get in yourself, and you try and prove why the formal structure is appropriate for you. Like, I just started reading and started being interested in things, and then within 3 years I was at university. So follow that. That's the main thing. And you don't even, like, university is not the end goal by any means. Like, you don't have to go to university.
Yeah, I think it's like, you know how there's a lot of attention nowadays on the fact that people learn in different ways. Like, you're either a visual learner or a practical learner or an audio learner or whatever it is. I think the same thing applies to, like, some people learn best in a university environment. Some people learn best sitting on their own reading a book, which essentially many universities are just sitting on your own reading a book. You just get told what to read. So like yeah, you're right. Like, you just follow your intuition. And like you say, even if you went to university, if you don't have an interest in the topic already, and if you haven't already been engaging with it, then you're not going to get anywhere anyway. So there's no there's no point, really.
And the universities themselves, it's not just university as one institution. Like, you could argue that it's a social institution within itself, but there are some universities which are more appropriate for a particular individual than others. Like, there's a lot of debate about Oxford and Cambridge in the UK, and elitism and access and things like that. And I see, like, part of the access work shouldn't be trying to encourage people to apply. It should be trying to help people to figure out whether or not that mode of study is best for them. Yeah. Because, like, I'm here, like, I applied twice, so it took me 2 years to get in, and there have been so many times where I've been like, I don't want to be here because this is not how I like learning. I've learned better things, like more useful things, better lessons before going. But over the course of a year, and then the second year, and then the third year, it gets better. So it's like, if you go to, like, Oxford might be good for one individual, but I don't know, Cardiff might be perfect for another. Or
it's like how if you're studying physics, you're probably better off at somewhere like Manchester.
No, it depends on the individual. It depends on how you like studying and how you like living your life. It's like,
and also different countries, like different countries have completely different university experiences. Like some people, like you get international students from the US, it's a total different vibe. Like it's worth looking into the country's kind of culture around education and how they do it, and seeing if that might be a good way to learn. Because perhaps you conclude that university in the UK just isn't worth it, but if you go to study it somewhere in the US because there's a different culture over there, it would actually be more conducive to your education. It's worth looking into. But like, yeah, there's no one size fits all for everybody. Like, also
at the same time, I would say, unless it's a serious logistical and financial strain, like making a mistake is a lesson within itself. Like if you go somewhere and you don't like it, you'll learn that, and that will guide your learning in future years. Like it's absolutely fine to do that, to go somewhere and not like it. But if you can grind it out and still do well, then you'll probably come out better than the people who absolutely loved it, because you'll learn an extra lesson from that in yourself about how you prefer things to be and how you prefer to learn. So be specific, but don't treat it too seriously. I think that's good. Riley and I both go to the same university. We go to different colleges, but we're at the same university. But we've had like pretty different experiences, I think. Like when I catch up with you and we talk about what we've been up to and how we've been finding it, like it varies wildly. And that might be because we do go to different colleges, but I think it's also just got a lot to do with the fact that we have different interests in terms of education. And I don't mean interest in the topic, I mean interest in the mode of actually of learning. Absolutely. And we do different degrees as well. Like we're part of the same philosophy school, but yeah, definitely. And that's absolutely fine to have one experience which has one particular characteristic over another. Like that's absolutely fine. I'd be very, very surprised if we ever had the exact same day or the exact same week at any given time. Even my course mates at my college, none of us have the same day at all or the same experience, as far as I can tell. You've just got a complete, like, such a wide variety of individuals. There are 15,000, 20,000 undergraduates there, and I doubt even two of them would have the same kind of experience. So well, exactly. Yeah, you've just got to get through it. Like, it's fine. We're in such a like a, how do I put it? We're in a good position. We're in a good position being at a university and being able to study where some people don't get that opportunity at all. Yeah. But certainly self-study and reflection. Yeah, but that's also why I feel like I have something of an obligation to try and share any knowledge that I find on like the YouTube channel. Like I've the talk that I gave yesterday in Bournemouth that's going up on the channel was infused with a lot of the things that I've been studying and learning about at university. Like many of the things that have sparked my interest when I've been actually at college have informed my views on morality, have informed my views on when I get like questions from the audience and things. I suddenly find myself in a position where I'm able to, like, the opinions are still the same. I still intuitively think about the issues in the same way, but I'm able to back myself up more with examples and with thinkers and with things that they've said, and they put it more eloquently than I have, so I can help explain it a bit better because of reference to them. And that's what university has really given me. But I think that the actual knowledge itself and the intuition and the opinions, they can come by themselves. They can come at their own accord. I already had views on morality before I went to university. Now they're more informed, but they haven't changed that much. Like, I've changed the context in which I think about it, but that's because of the reading I've been doing at university. And sure, it's university that made me do that reading, but it's possible to do that reading outside of university. And in fact,
I posted my entire reading list. So every single thing that I was expected to read at university in my first term is on my website, cosmicskeptic.com. It's in the little tabs at the top of the page. So you can go and see exactly what I was expected to read, including like the page and chapter numbers and everything. You can go and see exactly what I was supposed to read and the topics under which they fell. I haven't updated that for term 2 yet. So at the moment, you can go there and see what we had to read for moral philosophy and for logic and for my religion and religions paper. And I'll update that soon with my paper on the figure of Jesus Christ and my paper on general philosophy. And I will just have it there on my website. You can go and see exactly what at Oxford you are set to read. And if you want to go and pick up those books yourself or go to the library where you can find them for free and read those chapters, then you will be in exactly the same position as I am in terms of studying at university, because you'll have done exactly the same reading. And that's essentially all that being at university is. And you'll quickly realize that it's very difficult to read that much. And there's a lot of books on there which I probably didn't read, but I will read eventually because I didn't have the time at the time. But yeah, it's there. Like, it's on my website. Go and find the books. Go and read those books, and you'll be in exactly the same position as I am in terms of the education that I've had. So it's so easy now. It's so easy to do. So just go and do it.
That's huge. Like, I remember both times I applied to uni, there was like a little recommended reading thing of about 5 or 6 books, which are just general, like, New York Times bestsellers and stuff that you'd read if you were, say, I don't know, 15, 16 and remotely interested in the degree.
Yeah.
And the gulf in sophistication between those books and what you're actually given when you get there is astonishing. It's crazy. So make the most of those resources.
Absolutely,
because
yeah.
there aren't many other people who will. It's almost like leaking a document.
Yeah.
That's what it's like, because the university, well, Oxford University at least, I know other universities are better at it, but Oxford at least don't like their reading list being out. Maybe because they're scared that someone will just read the whole thing, then apply.
Right.
And be in the interview and go, oh, so-and-so said this, and this, and then they don't get in after quoting everything that...
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. Like, they don't let you in based on your knowledge. Like, at the Oxford interview, people think that, like, for an interview at Oxford or Cambridge, you need to go in and just show that you've done a lot of reading and that you know all the topics and everything. Like, no, that they're just looking for general interest. So like, again, the way that you get into university in that respect is by showing an interest and having done some general reading. Well, most of the people who subscribe to my YouTube channel probably have done that because of the type of people to be interested in the topics I talk about. You're probably at exactly the same place as you would be if you were applying for university, if not far, far beyond that. And so if all university really is, at least as I see it, is just reading these books, well, you can do that and just go on the website, find the reading list, which I've uploaded. I didn't ask permission. I hope I'm allowed to, but it's there. So go and check it out, read it. And yeah, it's a good time to be alive, to be able to educate yourself. Like, it was impossible previously. Like, Thomas Jefferson's library was something like 300 or 400 books. And that was considered like a fantastic library. In fact, when the Library of Congress burned down in the War of 1812, when the British set it on fire, Thomas Jefferson donated his personal library to Congress, and you can actually go and see it in DC, the original library, I mean. And it was considered a massive investment. He had a few hundred books. Like, I own that many books now. Like, what a time to be alive. You don't even need to own the books. You can go online and find PDFs. You can go to the library and find them. You can get them on Kindle. Like, you can go to Gutenberg, the Project Gutenberg, and find all of these copyright-free books on the computer. You can get them onto your Kindle or onto your phone or onto your computer, and you can just read them. Like, that's just incredible. If you told someone like Thomas Jefferson that would be the case, he'd probably sit back and philosophize and say, like, man, the knowledge of humanity must just be through the roof. Like, no, it's not, because people just don't do it. They don't just sit down and read the book, but you can do that, and that's the way to cut above the crop. And it's so easy. Like, you don't need to go to university anymore. You don't need to have access to the books, because essentially what a university used to be was just access to a book, like access to their libraries. But you can get those books anywhere now. So, like, go and do it. Like, what's stopping you? You know, I don't know. But anyway, how are we doing on the questions?
Yeah, we've got like tons. We've got so many.
Fantastic.
So let's go with, we've got I can't remember what you called it again. A super mega chat. Super mega chat. Right, I'm going to write that down. It's a super chat. So Shentifier asks a very specific question, which I don't understand, but I hope you will.
Okay.
What is your opinion on the cognitivist meta-ethical view called error theory?
Mhm.
Also, have you heard of the knowledge argument and philosophical zombie arguments against materialism? Can the hard problem of consciousness ever be solved?
Okay, 3 questions. I'm not familiar with the second, no, but I'll look into it. How can we do this? So, error theory is essentially the view. It's the view that ethical, like moral statements, are propositions or can be propositions, but that they're all false. But I put out my views on morality before, and that should answer your questions about what I think about morality, because previously I held to a kind of non-cognitivist approach, which said that moral statements can't be true or false. Now, that has slightly changed. What I would recommend is wait until this video comes out tomorrow, the talk I gave yesterday. Not tomorrow, whenever it comes. I don't know when I'm going to get the footage, but it'll be fairly soon. I give a talk that essentially says that no, actually, if ethics can mean anything at all, which previously I didn't think it could, I was a non-cognitivist, like I say, because of the fact that it was grounded in I was kind of thinking along the lines of A.J. Ayer, the idea that saying that murder is wrong is just like saying I don't like murder, or boo murder, as he puts it. Now I have adapted the context in which I still think that, but I've adapted the context in which I'm thinking about it to see that we can have a meaningful ethical language and a meaningful ethical context in which we say that no, there actually can be such a way to say you should do this and have it be true, and have it at least correspond to an objectively true fact. So I don't subscribe to error theory for that reason, but wait until the talk comes out. That will explain how it kind of comes across as a agent-based moral theory that I'm espousing. To give you the short answer, and again, you'll have to watch the full talk to really unpack what I'm saying, but when you commit an action, I don't think that the action itself can be right or wrong. So I don't think it can be wrong in the sense that error theory says, but I think that you acting in a certain way can demonstrate whether or not you are right or wrong about a belief that you hold. That sounds really strange, I know, but it does work. It does fit together. I think that's the closest thing we can get to ethics. But no, I'm not an error theorist. And the second question about the hard problem of consciousness, which by that I presume that you mean like the. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll just. I know exactly what we're talking about, because I think you mean like the hard problem of consciousness is the problem of explaining how and why sentient organisms. Yeah. So look, I don't think so. I think perhaps like consciousness is seen as this. Everybody talks about consciousness like no one knows what it is, no one understands it. Like, well, that's true, but people seem to place it in its own category. They don't see it as just an extension of biology, which I think that ultimately it can be. Like, people see consciousness as this kind of magical, almost supernatural force. Like, it exists within you. No one really understands the nature of it. Like, I see it as just an extension of biology, in the same way that a flower can react to the sun or shrivel up in the cold or follow the light across the sky. Like, just complicate that to the nth degree, and you have us. I mean, our consciousness, our awareness is essentially just reaction to the external world. Like, things that occur in the world and the way that we react to them, that's essentially what consciousness is. It's the reaction to that. Now, we're aware of it, which is the kind of consciousness problem. It's like, what does it mean to actually be aware of that? But I think that our awareness of it is itself just a reaction. It's just a really complicated extension of biology. But like, consciousness is not something that I've particularly looked into. It's the reason I haven't really talked about it on my channel is because like, I see it in this fairly simplistic way, and I don't want to talk about it until I've delved into it a bit more. So I've been meaning to read Daniel Dennett's book on the subject, which I've heard is quite good. So I'd recommend that book, not because I've read it, but because it's been recommended to me by trustworthy sources. Like, if you want to know a thing or two about consciousness, you're better off speaking to him than to me. But I see it in this fairly simplistic way. I don't like to put it in a category of thought that exists outside of other human phenomenon like sight or hearing or smell. I see consciousness as just part of that human biology and psychology, I think. But I'm open to having my mind changed on that. But I don't really have a strong opinion on the topic.
What are your views on forgiveness?
Is that the question?
Yeah, I've seen that like pop up about 10 times.
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
Okay. I don't believe in free will, as many of you will know. Forgiveness to me seems to be the you know what this feels like, Riley? This feels like an interview question. Like
Q&A has come from them.
I'm pretty sure that somebody told me. I don't know if it was exactly forgiveness, but it was a concept like forgiveness. For their interview at Oxford, they had to sit down, and the tutor was just like, "What do you think about forgiveness?" I'm pretty sure it was forgiveness. Actually, that's quite a weird coincidence, but it's just such a broad, interesting question. But okay, so look, I don't believe in free will. And forgiveness for me is essentially the recognition that this person has done something wrong and they're truly sorry for it. It's like, in the traditional sense that people tend to think about forgiveness, I forgive everybody immediately. Like, because of the free will argument, because of the fact that I don't believe that people could have acted differently, and I think that they are acting in accordance with a necessary chain of causal events inside of their brain, and ultimately that come from the external world that they had no control over. If somebody murders my family, the worst I can feel for them in a sort of philosophically justifiable way is sorry for them. I have to feel like they're just a victim of their circumstances. They didn't choose to have the genetic predisposition to violence and the upbringing and the specific neural activity that caused them to want to murder my family. Like, they didn't choose to have that. Like, I feel sorry for the fact that they're now going to have to suffer in prison because they committed a crime that was horrendous, but that they didn't actually have any control over. Like, that situation sucks for everyone. It sucks for my family, it sucks for me, and it sucks for them. But in a philosophical sense, I forgive them because with my free will philosophy, which if you haven't seen, I've made a video on it explaining why I don't believe that free will exists in a meaningful sense. I have to just like, it leads me necessarily to believe that I have to just forgive them in the sense that I don't hold them morally culpable in the traditional sense. And again, this is why I gave this talk yesterday called The Good Delusion, because morality kind of entails, traditionally speaking, it entails a conception of free will and the ability to choose between different options. I don't think that exists. And forgiveness is part of that umbrella. So when I get rid of the free will part and I get rid of the traditional conceptions of morality, I have to just say, look, I forgive you on a philosophical level. Now, it might not be useful, like societally speaking, to have a society where when anyone commits a crime, we just say, well, we all forgive you, it's fine. Like, it's not fine. But if by forgiveness you just mean the recognition that someone should no longer be held morally culpable for their action, that's essentially what forgiveness is. It's like, you did this thing and I was holding you morally accountable, but now I forgive you. I remove that moral burden from you. Well, when you get rid of free will, that moral burden is removed automatically. So I have to kind of just forgive everyone immediately, which is a quite troubling and disturbing thought, but it's where my philosophy leads me. Next question.
Next question.
Next question.
What are some of your favorite or least favorite responses to your vegan video?
I think my favorite responses were the outpouring of support in terms of people offering help and guidance and encouragement. Like, this is really exciting. Like, you should go vegan. Here's how you do it. Here are the recipes. Here's how you get your nutrition. Here are the links. I've also enjoyed in a roundabout way some of the bad arguments that come about, like on Twitter especially. It's been all over the place. People have been tagging me in all sorts of things, saying these arguments like, but people, like, lions kill each other in the wild. Why can't we kill them? Like, lions would kill us. Why can't we kill the lion or the pig or whatever? It's like as if pigs would actually kill us. That's another issue. Like, I've enjoyed those. Those have been like my favorite in that sense. But my least favorite have been, like, I don't know, some of the vitriol that's come of it. Like, firstly, I that video I made, like, I wasn't a vegan in that video. I specifically called it A Meat Eater's Guide to Veganism, and I got a bunch of people responding like, veganism is a cult, it's a religion. I can't believe that you're considering joining this group. It's like, geez, man, it's just like not eating meat. Like, A, it's not that hard. B, it's not that big of a life decision. Like, it's not a big deal. I haven't understood why people are so angry about it. It's like, yeah, okay, so the philosophy of veganism kind of entails the view that nobody should be doing it, but I don't have the power to stop you eating meat. And in fact, Like, the best way you could stop me from thinking that you should not be eating meat is by philosophically convincing me of the contrary, right? So, like, if you're angry, why are you angry? Like, if you're right, then just talk me out of it. Tell me why you're right. And if you're wrong, then surely you want to change your behavior. So, like, why are you angry? Why are you getting all up in arms about it? Like, just calm down. Like, people tagging me and things like, that's right, Alex. You can't. I retweeted this. Like, that's right, Alex. You can't drink whiskey because whiskey's got animal products in it, and so is beer. And I just, like, it's a simple Google search. I found a website that easily labels all popular beers and whiskeys and all sorts of spirits as whether or not they contain animal products. It's super easy, and most don't. Like, people just somebody tweeted out. They said that, like, they sent a link and they were like, look at this story of a child that like was malnourished and contracted this disease because their parents had them on a vegan diet. Like, it's totally unhealthy. And I clicked on the link, and the link said, like, the parents, who can't be named for legal reasons, fed their child a strict diet of bananas and nuts and like oat milk. And I was like, that's okay, yeah, so that is a vegan diet, but it's not the vegan diet. Like, if a parent only fed their kid like one piece of chicken every day, that child would be ridiculously unhealthy. But it's not because they're eating meat that they're unhealthy. It's because they're not getting a balanced diet. Like, people are sending these links to stories, and people who are vegan or living off some kind of vegan diet are malnourished or they're ill or whatever. Like, not because they're vegans, but because they're doing veganism badly. Like, that's probably, like, the least coherent or least thought through responses that I've had. But I've really, really enjoyed the responses I've had. In fact, one of my favorite came from another YouTuber. What's his name? It's something philosophy. It's like, I can't remember. Either way, you'll find out soon, because I thought his response was so good, or so reasonable and so well put together, that I'm going to speak to him on his channel about it on Tuesday. We're going to be going live. I'll tweet that out, obviously, and put it on Facebook and everything. So follow me on the social media. But I'm going to be on his channel talking about objectivity and ethics and whether that extends to animals, because of the response that he made to my video, which I thought was fantastically well put together. So I really enjoyed that. I'll and again, you'll see that soon when I put it out on social media. But I've been really grateful for all of the reactions, and all of the support has been absolutely fantastic. It's been one of my favorite videos to do so far. Next question.
So this is one that came up quite a long time ago, but I made a note of it. What are your aspirations for the future?
Well, it's broad. It depends what you mean, because there's like intellectual aspirations, academic aspirations, job aspirations. Essentially, if you're asking, like, where do you want to be in 10 years or whatever, like, because of the philosophy and the philosophizing I've been doing, I'd like to say that I'd probably be a vegan. I like to say that I probably would, or at least I'd have had my mind fully made up on that. I'd be like, okay, I've given the time to have the discussions, and I've realized that eating meat is moral, or I've realized it's not moral, and I'm actually going to commit to that as a moral philosophy. I'd like to be in that position. I would like to be well-read in philosophy. I'd like to have read all the kind of necessary classics, you know. I haven't read the Nicomachean Ethics, for instance. Like, that's just as an example. I haven't read Beyond Good and Evil. Like, I haven't read Dostoevsky. Like, I just haven't done it. And partly the reason for that is because I've been set so much reading at university, I just haven't had the time. But over the summer and after I finish university, I'd like to be well-read and knowledgeable in those areas. In terms of the channel, I want the channel to continue to grow. I want the podcast to do well. I want to be able to get really good guests on, and I want people to be excited about the conversations we're having. I want to have a successful podcast wherein I'm not just interviewing someone, but having a conversation with them, and have people actively engage with the conversations we're having, not just about atheism or whatever, but about moral philosophy, about death, about the environment, about space and astronomy, about the nature of evil, all these kind of random topics that I find interesting or useful. I want to be able to talk about those things. But I want the channel to continue to go strength to strength. I want to do more public talks, which is already going very well. speaking in Texas at the end of April, spoke yesterday at Bournemouth, speaking in, I think, Winchester near the end of this year. I like to do more of that kind of thing. I think it's really fun. I'd like to write a book. Definitely would like to write a book. Not quite sure on what. Perhaps I'd write a book about my ethical views when they become a bit more solidified. I mean, like the meta-ethical views, not like about veganism, whatever, but about like the meta-ethical views that I hold and what morality is and what it means to say that you should do something. I'd like to write a book on that. But whatever I write the book on, I'd like to have a book out in publication in the next like 5 to 10 years. You know, that would be a great achievement. That's like really on the bucket list. And I want to travel more. I want to spend more time in the USA. I want to go around Europe and give some talks. I want to talk in the Bible Belt and converse with audience members. But essentially just more of the same. I'm having a great time, and it's all thanks to you and the fact that there are 250,000 of you now, 250,000 people who are willing to press that button and be open to new videos and be willing to listen to them. As long as that stays the same, I'm perfectly happy. More of the same is fine by me.
We're getting loads of questions about your new veganism now.
Really?
Lots. I mean, do you want to carry on with questions about veganism? Because it's a big debate, but you've done a video about it.
So essentially, like, I am more than happy to talk about veganism and talk about counter arguments to it and discuss them. However, I don't want my audience to feel as though I am going to be talking about nothing other than veganism. Like, that's not what a lot of you subscribe to. I'd hate to lose my 250,000 subscribers because of the fact that I won't shut up about veganism. But people do seem to be genuinely interested in it. So like, I'm happy to talk about it more. I mean, like, when you say that there have been a lot of questions, has that been? What do you mean by that? Have there been
within the area of veganism? There have been more good. There's been a higher frequency of good questions. But I guess that's just because it's something new. It's something that
it's like something that the audience, like, I haven't spoken to with my audience before. Like, I've spent a lot of time doing live streams and talking and having Q&As and things, and people are always asking about my views about God and religion, and people pretty much know where I stand on all of those issues now. They know where I stand on morality and where I stand on God, or where I stand on the Kalam cosmological argument or whatever. But veganism is brand new, so I can see why people would perhaps be interested. But
it's cool. Save it for the 500k subscribers Q&A.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, what I'm probably planning on doing, because I had so many comments and responses to the veganism videos, is there's a good chance that I might end up doing a video just responding to comments. If I do that, I'll let people know beforehand, and I'll put out a tweet probably, and I'll say, if you've got any points for the veganism question or the discussion, leave them here. And I'll do something a bit like this, like probably not a live stream, although perhaps a live stream, but I'll make some kind of video specifically dedicated to responding to the responses that I've had to the veganism video. So I think I will do that in the future. But yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. But I don't really know. I'm not monitoring the questions, so I don't know what's coming in and how it's been going.
All right, let's move on a bit. What do you think about anti-vaxxers?
Man, like, I mean, what do you think about anti-vaxxers? Like,
I don't know. I'm not a YouTuber.
It's just you are now.
I don't know.
It could, you know, people love a good conspiracy theory. I remember when I was younger and I used to watch conspiracy videos about like 9/11 or about Denver Airport or whatever it was, and I used to think, man, this is so interesting. And even now, like, you watch like the flat Earth stuff, and like, my immediate response is not how ridiculous. My immediate response is like, that's so interesting. Like, these puzzle pieces fit together. Like, it's actually a consistent story that Denver Airport is in fact a concentration camp. Like, it's not, but it could be. Like, that's quite interesting. That's quite fun. And when you get like the anti-vax stuff, it's like, it's again, you come across these videos, these conspiratorial videos, and you look into it, and the arguments they make, though completely flawed, like, they convince people, and people go like, wow, that's really interesting. And I feel like I'm on kind of like another level of intellectualism, because I've learned about this secret that's being hidden from society. And they're really excited to act upon that. And so they act in accordance with it. And it's like, it's all fun and it really is fun and games. Like, conspiracy theories are really, really fun. but it's all fun and games until somebody actually tries to act in a detrimental way in accordance with it. And that's what happens with the anti-vaxxers. It's like, I don't want to have to counter anti-vax propaganda for the same reason I don't want to have to counter flat Earth propaganda or 9/11 propaganda, because it's just ridiculous, man. Like it's interesting and kind of fun, but to indulge in, but it's so easy to debunk. I don't want to have to do it, but if people are actually going to not vaccinate their children because of it, then we just have to respond to it. And a lot of people in our community have done a very, very great job of doing that. I've never done it, but I don't think I need to. A lot of people in the community have spent a lot of time dedicated to ensuring that people recognize that the anti-vax movement is a pseudoscientific one, if even that.
Cool. Some funny ones, man. See, like I don't watch your live streams, so I've never seen
thank you, mate.
I've never seen the comments come in, so this is good. What are your thoughts on essential oils?
Go and subscribe to Genetically Modified Skeptic. He knows far more about that than I do. Watch his video, like, I almost joined a cult. I think it's one of his most popular videos. He talks a lot about like essential oils and that kind of thing, and how he was like involved with that. Like, he has a whole lot of knowledge about that. Go and check him out. I trust him a lot. I really enjoy his discussions on things. So subscribe to him.
Quite a few people have been asking for your thoughts on antinatalism.
Yeah, this has come up a lot since the veganism video. I don't know why. I think it's perhaps because people have just been thinking, oh, now's a good time to ask Alex about things he doesn't usually talk about. Antinatalism, it's tricky, because if you have a philosophy of morality that says something like the minimization of suffering is the objective of morality, which I think is a fairly sane way to look at morality. Like, a lot of people in our community look at morality in terms of well-being, and well-being is essentially like pleasure and the avoidance of pain. It depends which way you define it. If you define it in terms of pleasure in the affirmative, then antinatalism can be countered, because you can say, for instance, that the pains that will be involved in like culling society and committing this act of stopping people from having children would cause a lot of pain, and we're looking for pleasure in the affirmative. And there's no such thing as well-being if there's no being. Like, you can't have well-being for creatures that don't actually exist. Fine, but if your philosophy is about the minimization of suffering, Arthur Schopenhauer, in his what's it called now? The essay that he wrote. It's like his most famous essay. It's just slipped my mind. It's in his Essays and Pessimism, On the Sufferings of the World. That's what it's called. He essentially paints this view that says, actually, no, we're like, it's not about pleasure. Like, the affirmative thing, the thing that exists is not the pleasure, and pleasure is just the absence of pain. The thing that exists is pain, and pleasure is just the absence of pain, or the rectification of some kind of pain. And I think that makes sense. If it's about the minimization of pain, then the question is simply this: is there a net pain or a net pleasure to human beings? If there is a net pain, then antinatalism makes sense. But that is a question that we can't practically answer now, because we don't have the technology to scan everybody's brain and decide whether or not the pleasure outweighs the pain. But in principle, that question has an answer. Okay, and if it's found, as I think it perhaps would be found, that there is more pleasure than pain as a net, in a kind of net sense, over humanity, then antinatalism doesn't make sense. But again, antinatalism is not something that I'm not aware of the most compelling arguments in favor of it. So I can tell you what I think about it and tell you why I don't quite agree with it. But immediately someone will turn around and say, but you haven't heard this argument. Like, no, I haven't. I would rather see it presented in its most effective format. And that's the reason why I haven't really been responding to people who've been asking me about antinatalism, because I can tell you what I think, but I don't want to do so until I'm informed with the best views in favor of antinatalism if I'm going to try and argue against it. So in fact, let me know, like send me a tweet or an email or something telling me what the best argument that you found, or the best essay or the best paper that you found in favor of antinatalism, and I'll give it a read and perhaps make a video on it. But as far as I see it, it just depends on your meta-ethical theory. If your meta-ethical theory is about the maximization of pleasure, then you can get out of antinatalism. If it's about the minimization of pain, then if you think that there's more net pain in humanity than pleasure, which is a reasonable thing to think, then antinatalism does make sense as a moral philosophy. But if there's more pleasure, then it simply doesn't. And the reason why I think that pleasure and pain are the important factors when it comes to morality will be unveiled and discussed and made available to you in the talk, which I've mentioned like 5 times now, but I'm excited to actually have it out to you. So watch this talk. It's going to be called The Good Delusion, and you'll see what I think, and then ask me again, and we'll see how it all fits in.
What are your thoughts on postmodern philosophy?
Like, it depends. Like that's such a broad question. I don't like postmodern political theory. I'm not a fan. I'm something of a traditionalist in the sense that I don't like the idea of big overarching end-all theories that try to explain humanity, and I don't like the postmodernist assertion that we are kind of moving into a new era of thinking whereby all of that needs to break down. Like I don't know, man. It depends on the issue. Honestly, it depends on the specific issue. Like, give me a specific issue and give me your favorite postmodernist thought on it, and we'll discuss it. But I don't like that. It's like saying, what do you think about conservative thought? What do you think about liberal thought? It's like it depends. It depends on the issue. Like, I wouldn't call myself a postmodernist. I wouldn't call myself a conservative. I wouldn't call myself a liberal. But there are certain postmodernist courses that I'm sure I could get behind. But it depends on the specific issue, I'm afraid.
Cool. If you could collaborate with any new YouTuber that you haven't already collaborated with, who would it be and why?
And why?
And why?
I do hope everyone on the live stream can actually hear this effect.
Yeah, that'd be weird if they couldn't.
It'd be very strange. Okay, new YouTubers. Let me think. He's not new, but Earthling Ed. I'd love to speak to Earthling Ed.
So many people have been just saying Earthling Ed with no other words. Like, it's just been Earthling Ed all night.
Earthling Ed is fantastic. I love that man. I think he's great. I'm going to try and reach out to him, have him on the podcast. I'd love to sit down and talk to him because I think he's such a calm, reasoned, and switched on human being. I mean, he's so chilled out when you watch his videos or when you watch him talking to people in public. He's just so chilled out. You think like he's not kind of fully engaged because he's not like, ready and active. But someone can ask him any question and he will just immediately have the answer to it. Like, just calm, collected, but immediately on the ball. I'd love to talk to him. I think I'd probably like to talk to someone like Mr. Atheist, who I haven't reached out to before or anything, but just because he has had, I haven't really watched his videos, but he has just exploded, and I'd love to know why. Like, there's obviously something going on with his channel to explain why he just absolutely blew up. I'd love to. I haven't had much time recently, so I haven't really been able to watch his content, but I'd love to do so and see what it is that's made him blow up and talk to him about that. I think those two would be the main ones, but yeah, I don't think Earthling Ed's new in the sense that like I'm new. I think we've probably been doing it about the same amount of time. But I don't know how recently he blew up. But I only heard about him recently, so he's new to me, and I'd love to speak to him. I think. You're giggling, Riley. You're laughing.
Yeah, no, not about what you're saying. Ignore me. Let's have a look.
Let's have a looky here.
Let's have a little looky. Have you seen the new Star Wars trailer, and what are your thoughts on it?
Yep. If they're bringing back Palpatine, I think it's a mistake. I think it's one of these like, oh wow, we're bringing back Han Solo, we're bringing back Lando Calrissian. Like, oh wow, fantastic, great. It's like having bloody R2-D2 and C-3PO in every movie. Like, they're just not needed, for goodness sake. Like, I'd hope that Palpatine is coming back as a character, his like influence is coming back or something like that. But if they're just going to like, wow, he's back from the dead, like they did with Darth Maul in the spin-off trilogies, it would just be a bit of a kick in the teeth to the original trilogy, as if they haven't done that enough already. But like, I'll go and see it, but I'm not nearly as excited as I was about like Episode 7. I love Star Wars. I love the original trilogy. This trailer hasn't got me particularly excited to go and see it, but probably because Episode 7 and 8 were a bit crap. I think anyway, like they just didn't really do it for me. They were good, worth seeing, but I didn't want to go and see them again. I only saw each of them once in the cinema. But the trailer's good. Have you seen it, Riley?
No.
Cool. Well, yeah, I'll go and watch it. But yeah, I'm excited, but only as excited as for Episode 8, which wasn't much, not as much as the originals.
Cool. Have you worked on any new original music? If so, is there any chance we'll hear it? Big fan.
No.
Cool.
No, okay, so yeah, like I haven't really been doing music recently, and I haven't quite had enough champagne to pull the guitar out and plug it into the sound system here.
Yeah, don't do that.
But yeah, I haven't really been doing it recently. There's probably some like music and stuff that I've got lying around that I've like written or recorded that I haven't uploaded, but if I ever do, it'll be like on SoundCloud, and all my old music stuff's on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/cosmic skeptic, if you want to go and check it out. But probably not. It's not really something I'm doing much anymore. Sorry.
Quite a few people have been asking what are your views on Jordan Peterson, but obviously that you're just going to say it depends on what he says. Or
well, it depends on what you mean by.
Yeah,
I like him. I really, really like Jordan Peterson. I think he's great. In the sense that even where he is talking tosh, he's talking tosh in the best possible way. I've enjoyed his. I already referred to him earlier in the live stream. I was making a point, and just by chance, I happened to bring him up because I thought he made a good topic on the point of university. A good point on the topic of universities. Like, he's a great speaker, man. Like I've seen him. Like we've seen him together. We saw him at the O2 with Sam Harris and Douglas Murray. I thought that conversation was like people just talking past each other. But I saw Jordan Peterson talk by himself in Oxford in October. And it was mesmerizing. It was like being at a church service or something. The whole audience was just captivated on this man, just this little man just walking around on the stage, just talking calmly and softly. And he spoke for like an hour, and then he realized the time was up. He just kind of stopped and went, "Thank you," and walked off. And the audience were just like the whole place was just in a trance. And I was part of that. I was like, what he's saying is so engaging. So as a person, as a thinker, as a talker, I think he's great. Like, even when he says things which I would dispute to the nth degree, it's like, I can't think of a better way to have put this argument that I disagree with. And I really want to engage with it, talk about it, break it down, tell you why I disagree. But as far as arguments that I disagree with go, you've put it as well as anyone could have done. So I'm very grateful that he's burst onto the scene.
What did you make when we were at the event at the O2 with Jordan Peterson, Sam Harris, and Douglas Murray, and it was absolutely crazy the amount of people that were there, and that was one day of, was it 3 or 4 just at the O2?
Yeah,
within those consecutive days. So obviously Jordan Peterson's touring the world, 12 Rules for Life, things like that. What do you think about him in particular, given that you said that he articulates arguments that you disagree with as well as possible? Do you like the fact that he has that platform and is talking to sort of football stadiums full of people and persuading them and getting millions of views on YouTube? Or do you think that there needs to be sort of someone as big as him standing up against him?
Well, look, there are, like, you have entire institutions going after him. Like, you have Vox hate his guts. The New York Times hate his guts. And, like, they can't bring him down. Like, what would be like more unfair to him as a speaker? Like, yeah, okay, so he's selling out stadiums and arenas, but like you've got Vox News going against him, and he survives the criticism. Like, he deserves to be there if he's really able to take on these institutions and these big things. He takes on Sam Harris. He's taking on Slavoj Žižek. That debate's coming up. That's going to be huge. Like, I don't mind the fact that he's got this platform, because so is Slavoj. Like, they're going to debate each other. And if Jordan Peterson comes out on top, like, then props to him. Even if he comes out on top for the wrong reason, like, if he argues better, like, if you're good at arguing and you're convincing people have a right to hear those arguments and they have a right to agree with you. So, like, props to him. If he's putting out bad arguments, I want to hear them, and I want them to be amplified so that we can break down and have everyone familiar with what they are, and we can explain why they're wrong. And if they're the right arguments, then of course I want them to be amplified. So either way, like, I think it's great. Like, for the same reason I think it's great that Sam Harris was on that stage in the O2 selling out that arena. And Sam Harris sells out stages in the same way that he does. Not at the moment. I mean, Jordan Peterson had a peak, but give it 5 years and they'll both be at the kind of same simmering level. They'll be able to sell out an auditorium. Like, both of them will be able to do that. Like, there are always people who are at the top at the moment. Like, if Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez did an event, it would sell out in minutes. Like, it's just there are times when somebody is like the focus of the attention, but and Jordan Peterson has been in that limelight, and not so much anymore, but he was over the past like 2 years or so. I've got no problem with that. No problem with that whatsoever.
Give it 5 years, there'll be support acts for you. What was I going to ask?
You're just being kind.
If Jordan Peterson has 12 rules for life, what are your 3 rules for life on the spot?
Jesus, on the spot. My God. Aye. 3 rules for life. My God. Okay, so stand up straight with your shoulders back. No, I think like read more. Like, read more. If you're already reading, then try and read a bit more. If you don't read, spend like an hour a day reading. It's the best format to actually understand topics and learn about things you wouldn't expect. Like, you read a book on a particular topic, and because it's a book, and books are by necessity just long, well, not by necessity, but a lot of them are just really long, and they go off on tangents all the time. You'll learn about things that you didn't realize you were going in to learn about. So read more books. Gosh, 3 rules. Try to engage with difficult areas of thinking. Identify where in your head are genuinely difficult or disturbing thoughts. Like, do you believe things that you are afraid to say in public? Are there things that you think that you would not be comfortable having people know that you think? If that's the case, then consider why. Try to identify those things in your brain and understand either why is it that you wouldn't be comfortable saying them? Is it because, like, you might be wrong and everyone disagrees with you, in which case try and figure out why you might be wrong? Is it because the cultural environment is not conducive to ideas that, like, if you're an atheist in Egypt, like, try to identify, like, is the culture that you're surrounded by not conducive to good conversation? And if that's so, see what you can do about it. Because those are the areas that you should perhaps focus on to try and change your mind immediately. But try and change your mind on as many topics. That would be the third thing, I suppose, is like, if you don't change your mind on something significant, like once a year, let's say, something's probably wrong. Like, put yourself in situations where your mind can be changed. And I don't mean like, I could go and listen to William Lane Craig give a talk. Like, wow, I'm putting myself in front of a Christian. Like, I'm not going to change my bloody mind. I know what Lane Craig thinks. I've heard him speak before. I'm not going to change my mind if I go and speak to him. Go on a topic that you don't know anything about. Like, I went to a debate recently on euthanasia, assisted dying. Like, yeah, okay, so intuitively, like, I'm probably in favor of euthanasia and assisted dying, but like, I don't really know much about it. So I went to this debate just thinking, like, this might actually change my mind. And it made me think about things I hadn't thought about before. Go to discussions and debates and read books on topics that you have no idea about. Ethical theories that you're not familiar with, political causes that you have no idea with. Read about the gun debate if you've never read about the gun debate. Read about terrorism and what it means. Read it. Just go into a bookstore, find like the very short introduction books or whatever, and just try and read about things that you don't know anything about, and try and genuinely have your mind changed on them. And if you're not changing your mind fairly regularly, then try and do something about that.
Are you saying question everything? Whoa.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So like we'll I guess we'll wrap up. So we can go to like 10:30. I guess we've got like 4 minutes left.
4 minutes, right? Let's get some rapid questions in, some desperate questions in. Let's see them come in. Just a quick one. Do you watch Game of Thrones? I don't think we've ever talked about Game of Thrones there.
I watched like the first episode once, and it was good, but just no.
Yeah, so you won't be up until 2 a.m. our time.
What?
Oh, it starts in like 3.5 hours.
Oh, like a new season or something?
In the final season, yeah.
Wow. How exciting.
Yeah. Again, what do you think about Ben Shapiro? It's him as, I guess, like...
Yes, it's kind of the same as Jordan Peterson there. Like,
yeah.
He's great. He's a great debater. He's probably like one of the most talented debaters on the scene. Probably the most talented debater in terms of like someone who's actually like super famous of the super famous political commentators. He's probably the most talented debater, which is a problem for people who disagree with him. It's a big problem because he's argued some ridiculous points and ridiculous cases, but argued them very, very well. And I don't know if there's such thing as a Ben Shapiro equivalent on the left. That's the other thing. I can't tell. Like, do you know what I mean, Riley? Like, I can't think of who would be the left equivalent of Ben Shapiro right now. And that's a big problem, I think, for me. I can't think of who it might be. Like, people will say someone like Slavoj Žižek. Like, no, not even nearly to the same extent as someone like Ben Shapiro in terms of their cultural influence. We need a left Ben Shapiro. I think Ben Shapiro is great, like I say, good voice to have and everything, but only if there's like a version on the left, which there just isn't at the moment, which is a big problem. Although perhaps that says something about the state of the left at the moment. Who knows? 2 minutes.
2 minutes. People have been asking about your drawers again, but I guess I do that every time.
The drawers. Pigs in space. Yeah, I haven't heard about the drawers in years. Gosh, I wish that meme would kick off again.
Yeah, you should move them here into the studio.
Into the studio.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Have them in the background.
You should definitely do that. Okay, what is the one thing that... So we'll end on this, because it's not about veganism or Ben Shapiro or Star Wars.
But my favourite topics are veganism, Ben Shapiro, and Star Wars.
Fair. Imagine, for whatever reason, you watch back this live stream that we've just done, and you're right at the end, and it's an hour before you start your next celebratory live stream for, let's say, 350k, 400k, 500k. I don't know. You might have gone back. You might have regressed, and this is like 100,000 subscribers.
If like I start losing subs and I do a celebratory live stream when I hit 100,000 or something.
Yeah, you never know. What's the one thing, the one message that you don't want to lose as this channel and your own intellect develops and expands both academically and commercially?
Oh man. I think if this channel like blew up and I had some kind of level of success where I could like call myself like a popular speaker or something like that, if things went the way I wanted them to, you know, if I was able to be in a position where I was able to engage with the big speakers, I wouldn't want to lose sight of the ideas. Like, I'd want to still be in a position where I'm willing to have a debate or a discussion with somebody who's got 20 subscribers because I think that their ideas are actually interesting or that they're good at making a point. Like, if I was like a Jordan Peterson character, if I was like touring the world with a best-selling book or something, I'd like to think that I'd still be able to come back, like go on YouTube and find that someone's made a criticism of me and they've got like 20 views. But if it's good, like I'm still willing to actually reach out to them and comment and respond to them. I just want to keep engaging with the ideas, engage with the right ideas, not the right people. If you know what I mean. That might be tricky to do, but I think that would be the case.
Cool.
But like, I don't see that happening. Like, even if this channel goes from strength to strength, even if we hit 500k, 600k, like on YouTube, like you're still just a YouTuber. Like in the real world, that's not like a big thing. I wouldn't be like stopped as I'm walking down the street, like some kind of like famous person who doesn't have time for debating. But like that's not gonna as the YouTube channel progresses, like that's not gonna, I don't have to worry about that. That's not gonna change. But I mean, like if I start seeing success outside of the channel, in the real world, as it were. Yeah, I'd want to be focusing on the ideas and not the people, and I'd like to think that I wouldn't be focused on growing the brand and the name and the outreach as much as I'm interested in engaging with the ideas. But I don't know, like, it's hard to say. Like I say, I'm having a good time. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I feel like I'm doing a good thing. I'm getting good feedback. People seem to be enjoying the conversations we're having. I'm really proud of the podcast that I'm starting. Like, it's all going very well. I just want to make sure that we keep doing that we keep interesting discussions. We keep videos that entice discussion and encourage people to want to come on the podcast and listen to the conversations in long form. Like, as long as that keeps going, everything else doesn't matter.
Cool.
I think that's it.
All right, cool. And if you do see Alex in the pub, don't just sit there and look at him. Do actually say hello.
Yes, come say hi.
Yeah.
Say hi.
Okay, cool. All right. Happy? Anything else you want to get off your chest?
No. I think we're done. So I'd like to say thanks to everyone. Oh, God, need to turn that off. I'd like to say thanks to everybody. So we're in the podcast studio, if you can't tell. I've set up this podcast studio, and it's been thanks to your viewership, your engagement, my supporters on Patreon. We've been able to get a podcast studio, set up the podcast, expand the content, all that kind of stuff. And so we've got this new space, and it's kitted out. We're using the Shure SM7B. And I've got this mixer, and it's just a tragedy that it's got so many cool things on it that for a podcast just aren't useful. Like, it's got all these effects, and this is the one opportunity that I can kind of get away with using them a little bit. So that's why I've been doing so. But yeah, I want to say thanks to everybody for being here. Thank you for subscribing. 250,000 subscribers is insane. That does not escape me, that is insane. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to everyone who's left a comment. Thank you to everybody who's sent me an email. Thanks to everyone in the super chat, in the live chat, asking questions. Thanks to my Patreon supporters who have really helped me get to where I am today. I hope this channel continues to grow. I don't know how fast it will grow. I don't know what topics I'll be talking about, but as long as you guys are on board, and as long as we're still having good conversations and useful conversations, then I'm on board too. And I'm really, really excited for the future. I feel very, very enthusiastic and motivated with how things have been going recently, how the podcast conversations have been going, how the videos have been received, how these new topics like veganism have been discussed and debated. I've been seriously, seriously encouraged by it. So yeah, I just want to say thank you, and I think that's probably a good place to end. Cool. I think so. So Riley, last word.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. I doubt you'll see me again.
Yeah, Riley, where can people find you online if they want to follow you?
Nowhere.
You should all follow Riley on Twitter.
No.
Okay.
It's on private. I reject all of you. It's simple.
Okay, fine. Okay, don't follow Riley on Twitter, but follow me on Twitter, because
follow Alex.
Yeah, at Cosmic Skeptic. You can follow me on Instagram at Cosmic Skeptic. You can follow me if you want to support me on Patreon. You can do so /Cosmic Skeptic. If you want to follow me on SoundCloud, you can do so at Cosmic Skeptic. If you want to find the podcast and everything tomorrow, it's going to be like the URL is going to be with what is it? Cosmic Skeptic. That's the one. Go and follow it there. Look out for the podcast tomorrow. I'm really excited for the launch, and I hope that you'll all be as excited as I am. And I will see you in the next one, I suppose. Cheerio. God, that was annoying. I tried to press end stream, but then a little thing comes up that says, "Are you sure you want to end the stream?" That's happened twice now. So we're still live. Like I say, like, all right, see you later, and then I press the button, and then I like awkwardly sit there for 5 minutes because the little confirmation button has come up. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one.